This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Yes, indeed, let's get on with this thing.
Oh boy, all right. Hey, can you guys make some room on the table here? I need to roll this thing out.
Let me get that box of Paula's Donuts out of the way.
Paula's Donuts. What do you got there, Phil?
This is the blueprint to the house, Misdirected.
This thing doesn't make any architectural sense at all. I'm not even sure a room can have dimensions like that.
Oh, that one's the non-Euclidean room. That was for Mythos stuff.
I call dibs on that one.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. You can have it. Anyway, look, I'm getting a bit of cabin fever being held up in the salon during this pandemic. So I thought we might look for another room that we could go visit next week. You know, something like low key so that I don't, still don't have to do like a lot of prep, but something a little different. That one right there.
What room is that? That's all the way down in the third sub-basement.
Yeah, I don't know if it ever had a formal name, but it's the vivisection room. It's where we used to take games apart and analyze them. I think that's where we're going to go next week.
Wow. It looks cool, but it looks like a long, long walk from here.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, we got a hike ahead of us. So, all right, so here's what we need to do. We're going to need to load up the backpacks, grab whatever food, those Paula's Donuts, a couple of those Super Mighties, a couple of Ted's hot dogs, whatever. Like, load it all up, get a beef on weck, and get your backpacks full, and we'll head out.
What about tonight?
Oh, shit, right. Shoot. Yeah, all right, well, all right, for tonight, let's chill and relax. We can, don't even put the Paulas in the bag. Just pass that one around. We'll eat donuts. We'll sing songs. For tomorrow, we are leaving on our quest for the vivisection room.
Yeah, and one Paula's Donuts like way better to last you a week. And with that, let's get started on the 5th Salon Room episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. We spend one more evening in the salon talking about the gaming topics going on in our lives. Then we'll head over to the conversation corner to talk about anything else going on in our lives. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
And I am Old Man Logan.
All righty, folks.
Good evening.
Good evening. Top of the show. Still in the middle of a pandemic, in case you didn't notice.
Yeah.
How are you all doing?
Good.
Yeah.
It's been a productive week. The weather's getting a little bit better. Getting a little bit more sleep, and just kind of feeling things are getting a little bit more normal every single day, or at least it's feeling a little bit more normal every single day. Plus, we had some good games.
Good. Bob, how about you?
Yeah, it's been a week. Sleep is about normal. Weather's definitely nice. There's no question about that. I had to fire up the AC this afternoon. It started to get a little warm. My allergies are kind of up and down. Like, I don't know why. They usually they peak, then they level off, and then they trail throughout the heart of the summer. But they've been a little up and down the last week, so it's like a little annoying. But other than that, no, go ahead.
We've had some rolling pressure fronts come through. I could feel it too. So.
Oh yeah, that's definitely the case. I have a barometer in my head. That's
yeah.
That is no.
I got one in my arm.
Yeah. But I feel like I've had a productive week, especially the past 3-4 days maybe. So
very nice.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
Oh, I myself feel like my anxiety is under control. I don't feel not feeling very anxious lately. My sleep is much better, which I'll talk a little bit more about when we get to the latter half of the show. But my sleep is good. My stress level is manageable. It is definitely not low, but it's definitely manageable. But it is a work thing, not a safety survival thing. Although I do have my, I still have like a lot of pandemic concerns. I'm not going to say they're any kind of phobia or anything, because I think it's quite rational to have to still have concerns. I mean, New York is faring quite well, but like it is clear from the COVID numbers, like we're not through this, right?
Yeah.
Like it isn't like, oh, remember the pandemic. Like it's still a real thing. I'm still wearing a mask everywhere I go, and I'm still making, very complicated decisions about going out in public and doing public things. So anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about that on the tail end of the show. But let's start off with like a good thing, like one good thing. Bob, tell me a good thing.
So there's this new piece of software that came out. It's a website. It's an app called Dungeon Scrawl, and the URL is dungeonscrawl.com. So it's like Dungeons Crawl, but it's really Dungeon Scrawl, and it's a mapping
Scrawl
program.
As in draw.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so what this thing does is let you create dungeon maps, and it automatically puts the hashing in, and like when you put two shapes together, it connects the rooms where they touch, and it lets you put in doors and stairs and all, like there's geometry and all kinds of. It's wild. It's amazing. It's super cool. I've been playing with it because I started working on a map for our Forbidden Lands game, and I'm going to talk more about that later. But this app is really slick. It's still kind of a beta. There's a few bugs here and there, and there's some features that they haven't put in yet. But it's a load of fun to play with, and the output from this looks super clean and professional. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's really sweet. I had been watching the developer on Twitter for some time, like posting little GIFs of parts of it, and have been just like, oh, that looks good. Like, oh, that looks good. And then it finally alpha'd a couple days ago, and I messed around with it just a little. I didn't get into it as much as you did, but boy, was it easy.
The moment you mentioned
the second you start playing with it, you're like, boom, boom, room connected. That's good.
Yeah, the moment you mentioned it, I jumped out to the URL and I started fiddling with it, and I pretty much haven't stopped.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of Dyson maps, these are very similar to a lot of the stuff that he does, and I really like that look of his stuff.
Yeah, the hatch maps. Like if you like the hatch maps, but you don't have the artistic skill to make hatch maps,
yes.
This is a wonderful tool.
Yeah, and I figured something out too, because I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but when you get to the website, the default background is kind of a sand color.
Yep.
Kind of a brownish, light tan, whatever. But I figured out after I had been partway through my map that you can set it all so that the grid and the stuff that you're drawing and everything is that classic blue from the modules from back in the day.
Love that blue.
So I switched everything over to the classic blue. It's gorgeous.
I'm sure that blue has a real name, but I always just refer to it as TSR blue.
Yeah.
That's how I or D&D blue.
D&D blue, yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Jer? What's a good thing going on with you?
I'm getting a lot better at Roll20. We did our game last weekend for Savage Eberron, and got to play some good stuff. That was 2 weeks ago, but I learned a lot playing with Chris Schmitty about how to do better things in Roll20. Some of the mistakes I was making, some of the things that I was taking 10 steps to do that are only 2 steps to do, and it's making it much easier to game prep for the next game and have a lot of stuff laid out well ahead of time, which is a lot of fun. And it means that it adds, it takes one more barrier away from DM confidence, which is one of the things I always have when I'm playing with Roll20 is, what am I taking too long to do? And, everybody's waiting for me to finish uploading this map or move this character over. So I'm just having a good time. I'm about to start playing with adding more tokens. I don't know how to do that yet, but I'm going to play around with it. especially since two of the Patreons that I do have been putting out a lot of their stuff in virtual tabletop, including Arcanite miniatures. If you've ever seen the flat plastic mini sheets that have been going around for a couple of years, or you subscribe to Dungeon in a Box on the flat plastic minis, and those are all Arcanite minis. They have taken all the stuff on their Patreon, and every day they're putting out another set that was their plastic minis as virtual tabletop tokens. So as soon as I do that, it's going to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of. They're all themed, so it's Underdark monsters and various species for characters and undead and elven forest and familiars and animals, all that kind of stuff. Just makes it easier to pull in, and it just looks really nice. It's a lot of fun, and just it makes it very easy to kind of put things on there. And it's a lot more fun when you can put 10 different orcs on the page, and people don't go, well, I want to go to orc number 3. It's like, I want to go to the orc with the spear, or the orc with the axe, or I like this character or that character. So I'm really liking Roll20. I'm going to probably buy the subscription version of it and toss him some money just because it's been really useful. Phil?
Yeah, I'm I definitely dig. I definitely am digging Roll20. I'm getting better at it. Slowly, because I don't always play games with folks on maps, but I kind of like it. But at the same time, I also it's the balancing, right? So if you're going to go with tokens and maps and monsters and stuff like that, you have to start adding like another layer of prep to your game. Maybe you don't. Maybe like for if you're a Savage Worlds person, you've been prepping maps and minis. But like I went like full indie hippie gamer. Like I usually don't have anything, and now I have to prep some map stuff for the games that I'm running. I don't dislike it. I just have to I have to be in the mood to want to do that part of the prep. And sometimes I enjoy it, but sometimes having to search through a whole bunch of things to find the right looking forest tile is not always my idea of fun. But I really do like the Roll20 experience. I've got 3 different games going on it, plus playing in another one. So I'm all in on the Roll20.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna roll through a couple of announcements. Blake Ryan, who is in the chat room tonight. Hello, Blake. It put up a link for the Kickstarter for Roll, which is another online tabletop application.
Yep.
That Kickstarter, I believe, is going well. Their first stretch goal, I believe, is going to be enhanced safety tools.
Nice.
So they're baking safety tools right into the application, which is a thing I like. And that is not a slight against Roll20.
No.
Because Roll20 came out many, many, many moons ago before safety tools were a more commonplace.
Yeah.
And this Roll is just coming out, and I commend them for just jumping right in and putting safety tools right in at the application level. I would like Roll20 to move forward with something like an X card macro or something. I don't think that would be very hard to
really
to set for them to put into the game. But I understand, right? Like I'm not holding that. I'm not counting that as a slight. But I do like the fact that Roll is like, well, we're going to build a new virtual tabletop, and guess what? We're going to put safety in right at the right in the base code.
Yep.
So I think cool. I will also remind people, if you are into our Next Generation Watch Club, that we are going strong this week. The week 3 list is up, which comprises the bulk of season 3. We are watching 2 episodes tonight. One that I like called Deja Q, which I find to be just an amusingly good episode. And then probably my number 1 or number 2 favorite Star Trek Next Gen episode of all time, which is Yesterday's Enterprise. And that is, I can't wait to watch it tonight. Chef's Kiss, so good. So I'm very excited for that. I also, when I put together the season 3 list, I added like one extra episode for the week, and then on top of it, after looking again at all the episodes for season 3, I probably put 6 more episodes in, not for people to have to watch, but I was like, if you kind of get through the ones that I listed and you're still got a hankering for some next gen, boy, season 3 had some good episodes.
Yeah, you
So I
put
just
like 6 to 8 extra ones. Like, here's extra credit if you feel like watching.
Yeah. If for any reason you're like, boy, I got a little extra time on my hands, like Tin Man is in that episode.
Yep.
Sarek is in that episode. Like there's a lot
The Hunted?
of good.
Is that what the?
Yes, the Hunted with
Hunted.
Rogar Danar, which
Yeah.
is like one of my top 5 favorite episodes. I don't know why, but I know why, but I don't want to give any spoilers away for people who haven't watched it. Anyway, season 3 is really solid. I had a lot of fun actually going back and even doing the bonus episodes. Like, hey, if you just want to watch a couple more from this set, like here's where they are. If you're like, wait, I'm a big Trek nerd and I see that your season 3 doesn't include Best of Both Worlds, the season finale, that's because it's coming next week.
Yeah.
It's gonna be the watch party, Best of Both Worlds 1 and 2. So we'll cross over from season 3 into season 4 next week.
Yep.
Anyway, we're going strong. If you want to join our watch party, we are doing it 11:30 p.m. Eastern. I know it's late, but we're showing some love to our West Coast and other time zones. We're doing 11:30 p.m. Eastern. We're doing it using the Chrome plugin Netflix Watch Party, and I will put the URL for the watch party into both into Slack, into the chat room, and into the forum for the week 3 with the week 3 episode. And that's all you need to do.
Cool.
To get hooked up. Coolness. Want to do one more Salon?
Let's do another Salon.
So Salon.
How about we do this first? Little super friends. All right, let's do it.
All right. One more time for anybody who's picking us up in the very recent past. Salon episode is just a light format. Light as in we don't script this, and it's where we talk about things like our gaming and our media consumption and things like that, and work it back into gaming topics, right? So this is a this is a 2-part thing. You want to talk about a thing that you did a little, and then you want to turn it into a gaming topic that we can all discuss. So just keeping that in mind, we'll start by first just kind of recapping what games we played in the last week. Depending on the week, sometimes that's a longer or shorter list. I'll just go really quick and then I'll kick it over to you guys. I played role-playing game-wise, so let's see, since last Tuesday, I played Dungeon Crawl Classics. So we started our new adventure, the Unit 5 5 points.
Yep.
And then we had our 24th session of Forbidden Lands.
24 sessions.
Oh yeah, it's session 24, which was fun. I think we had a little late start, but by no means did it detract anything from the actual play once we got started. Video games, I'm still playing Mario Kart Tour. I did not really like the Cup this past 2 weeks. They do like tour. They do a tour every 2 weeks. I did not like the tour the last 2 weeks. I did not find the tracks to be a lot of fun. And that tour ends tonight, so I'm excited to see what how the new tour is tomorrow. And I did some more Minecraft. I did not do as much Minecrafting as I'd like to have done this week, but I did play some Minecraft. I've been playing my little season 3 instance, and it's getting pretty nice in my little season 3 instance. Like I'm getting to that nice middle game part where resources aren't a huge struggle, but I'm still having fun building stuff. And that's really about all I got under my belt this week. What about you, Bobo?
Pretty much the same thing as far as RPGs. DCC and Forbidden Lands. And then we had our first session of Mothership on Wednesday, which is interesting. And Friday night, Eberron 5e. The DCC did not go the way I expected it. that adventure takes you down the path, and you're like do 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 do, and it goes right turn. I won't spoil it for anybody that might play it later, but man, it's like, whoa, what just happened?
It has a nice little twist, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yep. But yeah, that's where I've been in the RPG front. Still doing Mahjong on the computer, and I've been bouncing around the new Season 5 Minecraft pack before we finalize it and put it up for the server. Trying out some stuff and bouncing around, see how it goes, and discovered that Nuclear Craft is not a very friendly app or a friendly mod.
Yes, we're gonna have some conversations.
Yeah, Nuclear Craft puts a whole bunch of radioactive material in the game, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, when you're mining, if you come upon the ore just sitting there, I think you're okay. It doesn't bother you until you harvest it, and then when it's in your inventory, it starts giving off radiation. I could be wrong on that front.
That's bad, because if you're like vein mining or strip mining, we need to talk.
On a good note, when you hover over the stuff, like, it shows you if it's got rads, so you can be like, I got to get rid of this. But there's a biome that they added in called the Nuclear Wasteland. And if you get it within like 4 or 5
chunks.
I'm sorry.
Chunks.
Chunks. Thank you. You get within like 4 or 5 chunks of it, you start taking radiation. And if you actually go into it and spend any time in there, you're going to end up dead. They have radiation suits, and they have anti-radiation stuff that you can consume and stuff like that, but man, it's not very forgiving if you don't have the stuff. So it's a good thing when playing solo versions of this just for testing purposes. I always put cheats on and go into creative mode and pull some stuff that I want to play with and whatnot. And I had to go in and get myself some anti-rad a couple of times and save myself. But so looking forward to getting the full-fledged release of that pack so that we can start doing our little hippie commune when we go live.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And
Jerry, what about you?
Well, for RPGs, pretty much all the stuff you played last week minus Forbidden Lands. We did a DCC on Thursday, which was a lot of fun. Mothership, which I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on, but really liking that. It's a game I picked up when I was in Origins as well and never got a chance to play it. And we started our new story arc in Eberron, and that took off with a bang. And for online games, I'm still playing Marvel Strike Force, which has been a lot of fun with the new influx of newer players, and where it kind of put us, where the newer players are getting to the point where they're getting fairly competent and getting a lot of new stuff. So it's fun to watch people going through the same thing that you did, that I did 2 years ago with, oh, cool, when I put this character and this character together, they have synergy and they can do a bunch of cool stuff. And that's always fun as people realize that and have a good time. Also, a couple of younger players, which is a lot of fun to game with. And Minecraft finished the final days of the Old Man Logan Gerrymander Megapolis and put the last 2 buildings down and took some final pictures and kind of left our place. I've lost count. We've got well over 250 buildings in town.
Oh, yeah.
And they're close to 500 villagers, though the majority of them still end up going down to the marina to hang out and do spring break in the wave pool.
They're waiting.
Yeah. It's funny to watch the migration of people. About 60% of all the people in town eventually migrate slowly but surely to the coast, then end up in the wave pool. That's been a lot of fun, and just found some new buildings in the old one, and then started the new one and found that some of the buildings we discovered had been ruins that were actually much cooler when they're fully formed. So I have not encountered a nuclear wasteland yet, but I also don't have a flight ring, so I'm just still wandering around encountering stuff. The only thing I'm seeing in the new instance is that there are a lot of Crimson Knight portals everywhere.
Ugh.
Like Like, I haven't traveled probably more than 1,000 squares from my place, and I've encountered at least 7 of them.
That's something that we should probably have Schmitty double check in the config. There might be a way to change the frequency of those.
Yes, let's find out.
And they're popping up inside, like inside villages, inside desert temples.
That's happened before.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know we're at least 3 on this world. So that's what I've been into. It's been a lot of fun, though.
Very good.
To a good expectation. So
cool.
All right.
So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a game that we've played recently, and we're going to talk a little bit about the game, tie it back to something game related. I don't see any note for Bob. So
I struggled. I'm like, man, we've already talked about icons quite a bit. You're talking about it again tonight. I'm like, Jerry's covering Mothership. I'm like,
I'll mention something to you. Yeah. I'll try to come up with something on the fly. But
all right.
Let me talk about icons.
And Bob, look at my number 2. Look at my number 2, because that's something that I thought was a good point also that Chris did in his game. So, which you were in. Anyway, go ahead, Phil.
Sure. I'll start off. So after many scheduling difficulties of getting my icons game through session 0 through character gen, we finally got it off the ground. And I gotta say, I started off before the game started. I was like a bit reticent. I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is the right game. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this. Like, sometimes I get that. I get these kind of pre-game jitters where I start to question, like, oh, if I was more excited about this game, like maybe it'll go off better kind of thing or whatever. So we dove in, we started playing, and it went smashingly well. It is, I like the icon system a bunch, more than I thought I might. And it didn't take me long to get the hang of it. Now, I will say this. I'm sure it was intentional that Steve Kinnerson did this. There is a lot of Fate DNA baked into icons.
Yeah.
A lot, which turned out to my advantage because I know how to run Fate, so it didn't actually take me very long to figure out how to run icons. And also, like, once we started playing, it did not take long for the players, Bob being one of them, to actually jump in and get the hang of how to do stuff in the game. Like, I mean, by no means did we achieve any kind of system mastery, but what I really liked was the game is flexible enough where as soon as I'm like, tell me what you're doing, I can pretty much figure out what it is you need to roll. And what type of, like, is that an attack? Are you trying to create a quality / aspect? They say quality, I say aspect. And we just wound up having like this really good, it was a very superhero-y session. There was a giant stilt robot attacking campus, and the heroes came to defend the campus, the college campus, that is Halcyon Institute of Technology, the HIT, because they're the HIT squad. And we had a good fight. So anyway, my gaming topic from this is that I'm starting to recognize something that I like in a certain style of games, from a design aesthetic and from a GMing, I'm going to run this game point of view. And that is, I like games that have a really strong, really well-defined core mechanic, but is actually very light on rules. So like a really strong core, but I don't need rules for every situation. Like, allow me in the game to use the core mechanic and make rulings for this, right? This is very in a lot of ways, this is a very OSR, right? This is the rulings over rules idea. Now, I compare that to something like a PBTA game, right? A PBTA game, for me, and I was talking to Senda about this earlier, is a very genre enforcing style game, right? Like the moves in a PBTA game and the playbooks and everything else all kind of enforce the genre and style of a game. And absolutely true for Hydra Hackers, right? Hydra Hackers very much tells a lot about itself through the moves in the game. But I really like, in the case of Icons, in the case of One and a few other engines, I really like this idea of give me a strong core mechanic, give me a few examples, and allow me to interpret the narrative of the game into something to roll for. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened in Icons. Multiple times I just had to, in the middle of the game, I had to be like, all right, cool. What's the effect you're going for here? And then being like, excellent. Okay, then that is this. In one case, we had a quality up on the board that the quad was full of bystanders. And Glenn's character, who can transform into water, was like, I'm going to come in like a tidal wave. And I'm like, okay, are you like trying to slam the robot? And he's like, no. I want to kind of sweep all the bystanders out of the quad and move them down the campus out of danger. And I was like, oh, okay, perfect. I know exactly what that is. You actually, you want to make a check to get rid of the quality that we already have on the board. And just did it. And again, I think that that kind of game is really sharp for superhero games, because I think that superhero games with too many rules about the powers is less fun than superhero games with really cool narrative powers and then just the ability to make rulings about how to, like, what to roll for when you're trying to do a thing with your power.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I really dug Icons. It's the same reason I really like DCC, because DCC has far less rules than you would think when you see the book. I like DCC's core rules are 17 pages of the entire rule book. And, there's a lot of times where when I'm running DCC stuff, I'm just making rulings or making up stuff like, cool, make me a, what did just happen? It happened in our DCC game when Chris did the rope trick to close that the wolfworm's mouth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, cool. Well, it'll make, it's going to make some fortitude saves to see if it can't break that bond. There's nothing in the rules for that. I was just, I was like, cool, let's play that out. Let's make it happen. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I'm finding a lot of pleasure in games with really strong core mechanics and open kind of systems. Like, have a strong core mechanic, but don't give me a lot of rules. Just give me some examples and some guidelines. It's like the pirate code, right?
Yeah.
Just give me some guidelines to follow. Like, what are your feels on that? Like, what are your feels about how, like, from a player side? I'll ask you, Bob. Do you like games that have more rules, or are you cool with the GM just kind of making rulings?
Oh, I'm definitely in your camp. That it's, to me, the like you said, if you've got a super detailed system of all kinds of stuff about your powers and stuff, you can get bogged down in all of that detail. This is just like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to do this thing. It's like I'm talking about how I'm using my powers, but I don't have like a different rule for every different thing. And it's like, to me, it flows better, especially in a superhero game. You want to do superhero things. But you don't want to get bogged down in a whole bunch of detail over how it gets done.
That's something that always bothered me about a lot of the superhero games that I played, especially back in the 80s, games like Heroes Unlimited, where, hey, I'm a superhero and I've got magnetics and I can move a cup 5 miles an hour. That could, your powers don't seem like real powers. And you can have that in other games like V&V, or even we joke about Marvel superheroes where I had a character who had powered armor and I rolled feeble for the armor. And so I was Cardboard Man. Because it really wasn't a power. And it seems like games like Icons and even Masks and things like that really push hard towards the idea that if you've got a superpower, it's a freaking superpower. You can do something with it that is interesting and fun. Even if you are playing a game of misfits like Mystery Men or something, there's still something useful you can do. And there's nothing worse than being in a superhero game where you have a superpower but don't actually get to do anything cool and super with it, And so I like games that have better that have a mixture of mechanics, but not super crunchy mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, I like something to chew on mechanically, right? Like I like rolling some dice, and I like I like making the numbers move. I guess the thing is I've played over the years, especially 80s games, where it's like, all right, cool, you have laser powers, so you can shoot lasers and they do this much damage. And then you're in the middle of a superhero thing and you're like, we need to weld this submarine shut. I'd like to use my laser powers. And the rules are like, well, the rules don't let you weld things with your powers. You just blast things. And it's like, yeah, but that's very cool superhero-y kind of thing.
And they're freaking laser eyes.
Yeah. So I think that's something that you see a lot with that's something I think even some of the Sentinels does that too, where they give you you have a power, but there are all sorts of different ways that you can interpret how to use it, and it's always the fun thing. So.
I mean, Masks was really good about this, right? Masks is like, oh yeah, you got some powers. They don't even give you they barely give you descriptions. They're like, oh yeah, you got some stuff. You're unleashing it, you're directly confronting, something, whatever, but it's pretty loosey-goosey, which, again, I really like. Like I said, I especially like it for a superhero game. But I like it, I don't know, I definitely am finding myself, right? So this is a personal preference thing. This is not a this is correct gaming thing. This is just the natural progression of, hey, 2 or 3 years ago, all I did was play PBTA games and I loved them to death. And I still love PBTA games, don't get me wrong, still love them to death. But right now, the kind of things that are fascinating me are games with strong cores and open spaces. And in a lot of ways, that's what, in a lot of ways, Ditch Lilies is like that as well. Ditch Lilies has very little rules and has just kind of a core mechanic for, cool, we're going to make a roll to kind of see how this works. Let's put some stuff together, make the roll, and then let's interpret it into the rest of the story, which then gives the group this amazing flexibility and creativity. And I don't want to say, to be diplomatic, I don't want to say that games with lots of rules don't make people creative, because I think in some ways that's a higher constrained creativity. So sometimes you have to be even more creative in a game with rules to find the little spaces to do something cool, whereas opposed to a game with big sweeping, openness, winds up, just say a thing and try it. What I will say is that I personally, since I am old, and there is a limit to how many rules I want to learn for a game, I like a game that has this particular style, and I kind of, I can see myself kind of gravitating towards this when I eventually get back to designing something, kind of getting back into a space like this. It's kind of one of the things I really liked about the one engine. That's repetitive.
It's something that I liked about the time that I played Hellboy Cortex, was that I had a character who had some sort of element from their fire or ice or one of those things, and it was just I had 2d8, and that was just if I want to blast somebody with ice. But if I want to do ice armor, then that took one of my dice sizes down. If I wanted to put ice armor around 3 people, that took 3 of my dice sizes down. So I went from 2d8 now to 1d. Just scale the game back and forth. As people came up with ideas on what they wanted to do, it just moved your dice pool around a little bit, and it was still a mechanical effect. So you knew, okay, if I put armor around 4 people, it's not going to be as powerful as armor just around me, but I could do something with it, or I can make an ice slide, or whatever. I'm liking, and I like to see more games like that where people have a chance to change. I've got Fireball. What else can I do with it besides just, clear out the church kind of thing?
Whoa! What you do with that fireball there, Chair?
evil cultists.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, evil cultists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my first topic. My just kind of recognizing that style of game, and starting to recognize that it's a thing that's resonating with me, especially so much in the superhero genre. Although I think it would be equally fun to play something like that with urban fantasy wizards or whatever, where you just have that really open, non-Vancian kind of use of magic.
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see something like that for Blood Shadows. Great setting, really bad game system.
Yeah, there you go. Cool, Jared. Tell us the thing. Tell us the gaming topic from your your gaming experiences this week.
Kind of a segue from yours. We played Mothership. This is a game. It's a very small, like zine style game that I picked up at Origins last year. And it is a space horror sort of game. It's for simulating things like Aliens or Saturn III or something like that, where you're playing a bunch of characters stuck on a spaceship and things are going bad. It's got very simple rules. It's got a really great setting. The character generation is fun because as you design your character and pick your class, it opens things up. And Roll20 has a great page. So as you click on what you want to do, it automatically just brings up all the options you have. So you can create a decent character in like 5-10 minutes.
Oh, that's nice.
And you're good at you're competent at the things you're supposed to be competent at, and not so good at the other things. Like on the Android, I'm not good at shooting guns. I can do them, but I'm not as good as the Marine is. And the game is designed to infer that kind of survival horror. And I know that I've bitched a lot about games like Torg and stuff that it seems like no matter what you do, you're barely able to survive when you roll the dice.
Sure.
This is a game that's part of the game. Is you are tracking things like it's simple mechanics. But you are tracking things like, is your spacesuit punctured? How much water do you have? That kind of stuff. You don't all start the game with weapons. You have to pick things up as you go. And Drew is running it, and he's running it. We actually haven't encountered the big bad yet, but it is the setting and the mood the game plays towards that very mysterious things in space. You're good at, can I repair the ship? Sure. Can I run on the computer? Yes. Can I hack the computer and find out what the government is doing? Probably not. Or you'll just get enough to make you more suspicious, give you a clue. And so the game itself is designed for very simple play that also the rules reinforce the genre. And that's a good thing. And they have a supplement called Dead Planet, which adds some of this stuff. And one of the things they have is a random starship generator where you literally just take a bunch of D6s and toss them on the table and then line them all up so they're touching. And what you rolled as a number on those D6s tells you what kind of component that is. Then just look at a chart and it tells you. So you don't have to map out your ship. The dice on the table are your ship.
Oh, that's neat. I like drop table.
Yeah. Like
drop table stuff like that.
So it means that and it makes sense. You're going to have like thrusters, near thrusters, and engines and stuff like that. The whole game is designed. I don't know how much campaign play we're going to get out of it. There's a good chance that none of us are going to survive the first mission, but that's Alien for you.
Yeah.
But I just like the feel and the way that the rules, by being simple and focusing the characters on what you're good at and what you're not good at, reinforce that whole feeling of specialists in the world. If you've watched Aliens, the Marines are really good at killing aliens. They're not really good at doing a lot of other things. They can do welding. A couple of them are computer specialists and the like, but they're not all your typical role-playing game characters who have dozens and dozens of skills that they're amazing at. I'm counting on the 2 Marines to fight the bad guys because my android probably ain't going to make it. And,
so what's the resolution mechanic in the game?
It's percentage dice. It's a roll under, and you have your stats, and then you have skills, and depending on whether your skills are competent, trained, or advanced, add additional percentages to your base percentage.
Okay.
So your base percentage on anything is going to be somewhere. It's what I think 5d10, and then from there you can get another up to plus 40 on that. So it's pretty straightforward. And when you're rolling percentages, if you roll doubles at a success is a crit, doubles at a failure is something catastrophic.
Oh, so like an 11, a 22, those kinds of things. Oh, that's fun.
So the better you get, the better your chances of rolling a critical success. When you're rolling something you're not good at, you have a better chance of screwing it up. Yeah. And so it's not just I fail. My chance of failing and it being a problem becomes an issue. Yeah. And so that means that you don't want everybody making you don't want everybody, oh, we're going to try to like pick this lock. Well, 3 of us have it at 55 and 1 of us is unskilled, so he has a 10. Let's all try it. No, don't.
Yeah.
Because that guy who's doing that,
okay.
It's that which leads to, once again, reinforcing that genre. And it's there are other settings for it. They're doing a couple other. I know they're doing a Kickstarter for a couple more settings for it. Right now, it's spaceships and exploration, and there are some very simple rules for like running your spaceship and designing a spaceship from scratch, which is also really simple. You're like, I want to pick. Real quick, you do things. Everything in the game is very, very simple. Pick what you want thematically, and then this is how it adds up. And so it's like, okay, you want to build a ship. How big is it going to be? 10 people on board. Okay, 10. Put a 10 here, and then because you have a 10, you need this many engines. So that's how many you get. This is how much. It's not like, oh, I've got so many resource points to spend. It's build the ship you want, and then when you're done, use this quick little chart to figure out what your stats are on that ship, and that's what you get. So you're going to have, if you have 10 people, you're going to need to have, at least 5 life support units on board. And so they're going to be somewhere on the ship. You should put them somewhere. Just slot them wherever you want. That kind of thing. So again, it's a little bit like the games that you and I grew up on, Phil, where it's like Car Wars and Traveler, where you spent 4 hours designing a ship down to how many bathrooms were on it. It's got that kind of fun design. It's also got the kind of indie type, the ship as a backdrop kind of feeling that you got from things like Mechton, where the ships were just designed to be places you fought with mechs. And so it makes the game pretty easy to do, and there is some ship-to-ship combat if you want to play that, but it's all like one-page things. I don't think there's any rule in the game where all the rules for it take up more than one zine-size page.
It's interesting.
So, it kind of falls on I think it was Simon Washburn who said, any rule that you can't put on a 3x5 card, you should throw out.
I have to admit, I'm not always a fan of percentile-based systems, largely because I didn't like them in the 80s.
Yeah.
But I say that in that the thing I've never liked about them is that they've always until like Marvel superheroes, they always felt kind of flat to me, right? And then Marvel superheroes had range of success, which I thought was cool, right? And then like when we're playing Call of Cthulhu now, like it's interesting in like that there's there's like a regular success, and then there's like a hard success, and which are just basically fractions of your percentage kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's I tended to stray away from games that had percent systems, especially like in the early 80s and like 90s. And I feel like I haven't given them like a really fair shake. Like I know I have this visceral thing where somebody's like, oh, we're going to play this game. And I'm like, what kind of task resolution they have, and they say the percentiles, and I'm like, wah wah.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's not fair. Like I feel like I'm not.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not being very fair about that.
Yeah, it depends on what the game is trying to do. In a case like this, where you're going for a survival horror aspect, I think that mechanic lends itself to that scenario very well.
Yep.
So I think you'd get a different feel if it was a different type of game. It's not a bad little system. It's not without its flaws.
Yeah.
Like Jerry said, it's roll low except for one thing. If you're doing an opposed check, it's whoever rolls highest without going over their stat.
It's like the Price is Right rule.
Yeah, so you still have to roll under your stat, but you have to roll higher than the other guy. Which
that's
it should have been whoever rolls lower than
lowest.
The other guy.
Yeah, whoever rolls lowest.
That would have made more sense. And they've been told that a couple of times. I read the comments on the Drive-Thru RPG page. But it's still a beta. It's like version 5 of the beta that, like Jerry said, the Kickstarter's coming out. And the Kickstarter was supposed to come out this year earlier, and they haven't done it yet.
Well, I mean, there's been some things going on.
Well, last year at Origins, they had a booth with a bunch. I think they were in IPR or one of those places, and they had a thing where they had Mothership and Dead Planet, and if you bought two of any other, they had a couple other books, but none of them were things I was interested in. If you bought 2 books, they gave you a 3rd book for free, and so I just got a 2nd copy of Mothership in case I wanted to share it with friends, which I probably will. And then they gave you a free 1-page. Like additional world thing kind of and it's the more I look at it, the more I play it, the more I want to try converting Star Frontiers over to it just for one adventure.
I mean, I think that'd be kind of cool. Star Frontiers is basically the premise of that game. Like, crash on a planet, find interesting monsters that try to eat you.
Yeah.
Like, that's most of Star Frontiers.
Yeah, the first adventure, yeah.
Yes, crash on Volterus or whatever? Volterus.
Crash on Volturnus. And then,
yes.
Yeah. But anyway, it's got some neat, it's got a little bit of 80s to it. It's got a little bit of 2000s to it. And it definitely captures the feel of, like our game feels like it's going to be a cross between Aliens and Event Horizon.
Yeah.
In all of the ways that are bad for the players.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think we're gonna die.
Right? One of the things he has. One of the things they have in that is that the reason all ships have androids is that people who stay conscious during jumps tend to
have breakdowns and stuff.
Have Warhammer 40,000 scale mental breakdowns, and that's a problem.
Yeah, it's not good.
And even the androids sometimes don't remember everything they did while the jump was going on.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
And sometimes you wake up to find out the androids did things while you were asleep, which to me is just, I'm like, that's all just playing into my wheelhouse. I love me some space horror so much.
Yeah.
So Bob.
Yeah, I want to just temperature check here. We're running a little late on this particular segment. Do you want to just bounce to the...
let's just roll right to... I mean, that is okay if we span those two things and move over. So want to just move over to taking a quick break, check in with our chat room?
Yeah.
Cool. Bob, do you want to tell me about a show on the Misdirected Mark Network before we jump in there?
I would love to tell you about another show on the network. We have a show called Bone, Stone, and Obsidian.
Sure do.
In which Wayne and Robert take monthly deep dives into the Dark Sun setting and discuss it across all editions of D&D. Dark Sun's a game, a setting that I have never played in, but I've read a bunch of the material for it. And one of these days I should play a Dark Sun game because it looks interesting, but but it's super popular among the D&D crowd. That's one of those.
Oh, Dark Sun is yeah. Dark Sun is the thing that if TSR was just like, or TSR, if WotC was just like, hey, you know what, Dark Sun, 5th edition setting book, the place would go ballistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of love for a fully supported Dark Sun setting.
Yep.
I had good times when I played it. I liked I liked back when I played it back in the 80s and stuff. I thought it was
For those who haven't played it, it's a post-apocalyptic magical world.
Yeah, it is.
It's arcane magic strips the life from the world. So every time a wizard casts a spell, they permanently kill all the plant life in an area.
In a already desert.
Yeah. The dragons are all like demigods. The cities are all at war, and metal corrodes, so all the weapons are made out of bones and stone
or obsidian. Yes.
Halflings are cannibals.
There are half giants.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thrycreen, my favorites from the old adventure cards.
I love those guys.
Yeah. Which are praying mantis men, if you haven't seen it.
Yep.
Before they went Dark Sun, they were on the original cards that they put out for D&D in the old days.
Plus, Dark Sun gave us a shit ton of awesome Braum art.
Oh
yes.
Oh, it kept Braum employed for a long time.
Yeah.
And I agree. Keeping Braum making art.
Yeah.
Is
pay Braum to draw things.
I'm always a good thing.
I'm pretty sure that Braum was the Ray Harryhausen of Dark Sun. I think there was a lot of stuff in Dark Sun that just came because Braum's like, I drew this. They're like, yep, that's part of the game now.
Yep. We don't know what it is, but we'll give it a name and some stats.
Yep, that's it. It's wonderful. Man. It's a really good setting. And I've listened to a lot of Bones from Obsidian. They do a really good job of talking about the setting and what makes it different and how to play it and where to find the sources for it. Because if you're new to Dark Sun, it's not always easy to find a lot of good resources for playing the game. And they talk about how to play it using the different editions and what makes a Templar different than a Cleric or a Paladin, even though it's pretty much the same thing. And so they're short sessions and they're really well done. So if you're interested in something cool for your D&D thing, I'd really recommend giving it a listen because they have a really good take on Dark Sun and capture the flavor and why people like it so much.
Cool.
So,
yeah. Very cool.
Awesome.
Chat room's been a little quiet. Anything going on in there?
Yeah, they're all engrossed in the show, listening intently to our wonderful exposition.
That always makes me nervous. Either we're doing a really good job or we're not.
The crowd feels a little thin, but they're definitely engrossed in the show. So
I did want to note, Kristen chimed in and had mentioned that games with lots of rulings. One is always a function of the game, which is, I think, whether it works or not is a function of the game that you're playing, which I think is always true. But I think the other part of it, which is I think why we have seen games with lots of rules is rulings require basically two things. One, it requires a GM who's going to have a skill in adjudicating the rules, right? That's part of it. So these games tend to do really well in the hands of experienced GMs, and these games can vary greatly in the hands of inexperienced GMs. The other thing is that there's a trust issue.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to trust the person who's doing the adjudicating. Right? You have to trust that I think this is a case where games with lots of rulings goes really hand in hand with being a fan of the players.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you say you want to do a thing and I just shut you down and make the ruling like, well, yeah, you can't do that. Like, that's not fun. But it is technically a ruling. I
think there's more to it than that. I think there's also the fact that a lot of the games today, and a lot of the gamers today are coming from a culture of both online gaming where you have a bunch of people that don't know each other all playing by the same set of rules, and in some cases being slightly competitive. And so a lot of them are drawn to games where they want to see that level of balance from player to player to player and level of ability. So I keep hearing the things about our fighters overpowered, our wizards overpowered, and all those, because people want to feel like they're all balanced. It's not always a bunch of friends just getting together to play. And there's also a lot of organized play out there. Organized play is a huge chunk of the gaming industry. And at the same time, you need to have a lot of rules for the same reason. You can't allow a GM to just say X or Y because it might affect things. It's why I got into trouble as a GM for Adventurers League, because people would come up to me and say, "Oh, I want to do that." But yeah, sure, you can do that. Well, then find out, well, so-and-so said that I'm not supposed to do that in the game. Well, it fit the adventure, but understand that that's not what you can do in Adventurers League. And it makes sense. You have to have that balance. So I think it's right. I think it's both the trust between the players and the GM, but also the fact that the players want to have a lot of rules so they know what they can and can't do from game to game and from table to table.
Well, and I think that so when we're talking about something like Adventurers League or other organized play, having more rules winds up, while it's not my favorite, it winds up being better because more rules make a more consistent experience from table to table.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the reason why McDonald's has like rules for damn near everything that they do in, behind the counter, right? Like how they make fries, how they make hamburgers and all of that, because what you're trying to get to is you want an experience that anytime I walk into a McDonald's, I'm getting the same experience, whether I'm doing it here in Buffalo, in Paris, in Texas, whatever, wherever. And I've done that, right? I've eaten at McDonald's internationally, and you get almost the same experience. So for AL, absolutely, right? For AL, you want a game that has more rules because it takes away rulings, and it gives you that consistent play experience across multiple GMs. Because what it's done is it's taken the processing part of the game out of the GM and has hard coded it. I myself personally don't actually enjoy that kind of play, because really what I'm as I've grown older, really what I'm just about is making like kick-ass cool stories, right? And I don't mean success after success. I mean cool ass successes and crushing failures.
Yep.
But I like the I very much like the tell me the cool thing you want to do. Cool. I don't like to be in charge of that, right? So this is why a diceless game doesn't always work for me. I don't want to be in charge of it because truthfully, I'll just keep saying yes to really cool things, right? Because if you tell me something, like if Bob gives me a description of something really cool, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, that totally happens, right?
That's why I think it's one of the things I think the strength of 5e is that the advantage disadvantage rules have really made that more possible, because somebody wants to do something cool, you just give them advantage or inspiration or both.
Or make them spend an inspiration. And again, this is what I'm talking about. Like if you build that really well-defined core, then you don't have to, like, I guess if you build it really well vertically, you don't have to build it out horizontally.
Right. And then people
we're just making that analogy just got made here on the show. So I like that a lot. But see, here's the thing I can't trust myself for, right? I can't trust myself to hear a suggestion from a player that's really cool and then be like, I don't think that's going to fit in the game. So I like being able to defer that decision to the dice. So I like being able to say, like, yes, Bob, that is really cool, but I think that's pushing your powers beyond their normal limit. I'm going to need you to roll that with disadvantage, or you need to make a heroic check instead of a normal check, whatever the mechanic is, right? I can basically say, like, yes, I like that, but I'm gonna let the dice decide this, right? And then if it works, we are all excited about it. And if it doesn't work, Bob, is then like, well, I did try that cool thing, but like the dice just didn't go my way.
Yeah.
I've always talked about the games where somebody makes a comment like, I'm in the bar. Is there a chandelier? And then you see the GM pour over the rules, see if there's a chandelier. I'm like, no, if a player asks if there's a chandelier in the bar, there damn well is one, because they're about to do something either really cool or really stupid. Either way, it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I think that we're slowly, at least when 5e came out, what they told us as GMs at Gen Con for the release was exactly that kind of thing. Like, yeah, if the players come with an idea, just let them roll with it. You know, if it's not going to affect the rules of the game, let them try it. Yeah. And if it is going to affect the rules of the game, just reskin it. You know.
So I like when games have a mechanic for handling that. So, for instance, if it's logical, right? Like, does this place have a chandelier in here, and we're like in the middle of a tavern? I could be like, sure, of course it does. No role, no mechanic engaged necessary. Makes narrative sense. But if we're like in some dusty dungeon library that some lich has, and you're like, is there a chandelier in here? And I'm honestly like, I don't know, maybe it's got magical lighting or whatever. Yeah. And then there's a mechanic like, I'm going to spend this fate point, Benny, determination, insert currency of choice. Then, I'm like, cool, yes, there's a chandelier. Or if there isn't, I'll just make up something that's like the equivalent of it. Like, no, there's not a chandelier, but there was a beam and this thing's hanging off of it or something. Like, will that work for you?
That's one of the things I love about playing with Mr. Savage Worlds, Tim Hannon, is you'll ask a question like that, like, is there a card outside? And he just holds his hand out. Is there? Waiting for that Betty to get into his hand.
Yeah.
And as time goes on, it's fun to watch players do that, where somebody's like, I've got an idea. I wonder if there's sometimes they skip over it. They're like, I wonder if there's a card outside. Another player like picks up a Betty. Yes, there's a card outside, And from a GM standpoint, I think that makes the game easier because the players are showing you where they want the story to go.
Yeah.
And you just got to kind of shape your story around that.
Yes.
In a way that they're going to be invested in it 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And they're going to come out of it feeling so much more excited about it and so much more energetic. And I like to see that as thinking. So I'm more and more excited about games that have that ruling. And looking back at old games, there are even games where I think that while it wasn't part of the game itself, there's a way to do that with games that let you spend experience points or karma or whatever to, I'll spend 50 karma to make this happen kind of thing,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that as a house rule for Face Rip or something would, would work fantastic. Like, hey, I'm Spider-Man and I've been tossed off this building by the Scorpion. Is there a flagpole sticking out of the building nearby? Sure. Or, is there something I can, swing onto because my web shooters are broken or whatever?
Yep.
Yeah, spend 50 karma. Tell me what you find.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that whole thing goes to, like all of this. If we're trying to kind of tie a central theme around this, right? It's that games that tend to have lighter rules, I don't want to say supports. Like you wind up doing a lot of stuff in the middle of the game, right? So you're doing a lot of processing in the middle of the game. So you're making your rulings, and in this case, if we've got mechanics where players have some narrative input, right? Then that has to get worked into the game as well, and this is what I've learned over the years is that I really like, so this is the contradiction to me. For all of the planning that I build my entire life around, right? The schedules, the project management, my own personal daily calendar, to-do system, whatever. The one place I like to be caught off guard is when I GM. Right? I don't like, I stopped doing more traditional games and started playing more indie games. And I stopped doing traditional prep and started doing more ad-libbed games because being surprised by the contributions of my players in the middle of a session and having to keep rolling the story forward, gives me great joy, right? I like the mental hustle of doing that narratively. I like the mental hustle of doing that mechanically, just slightly less. which is why I like these games, that have these really good kind of core elements, like vertical, not horizontal. I really dig that feeling of excitement. It's one of the reasons I say this all the time, but it's one of the reasons I love gaming with Tony, because I literally have no idea what he's going to come up with from moment to moment in that game, and nor does anyone else in the game. And at times, nor do I think Tony knows what he's going to come up with in the game. And the sheer what the hell is going to happen next-ness of that, I find to be exhilarating. But I'm just now realizing, as I'm telling you this, that the juxtaposition of that compared to the rest of my life is now making me want to ask myself some personal questions. So, which probably means it's time for us to move on into the next segment, as I, in the back of my brain, ponder why I enjoy that mental hustle so much. All right, cool. I'm going to just leave that there for now.
Yeah.
So, we'll take a slightly shorter approach to this. So we'll tighten this up just a little, but let's talk about a little media that we're consuming. And if we have enough time at the end, we'll talk about some other stuff that we're doing. And again, take your topic, relate it back to some gaming stuff. Bob, you want to go first?
Yeah, so this afternoon, I happened to watch a comedy special on Netflix from a comic named Joe Coy.
That's great.
And your typical comedy special is, this person's doing a show at some venue. Netflix says, we'll do it. They come out, they film it. He does the bit. They do the bit. Whoever they are, they do all their routine and whatever in front of this live audience. And then, away they go. But this was a little different. And I didn't know this going in. The special call is called Joe Coy in His Elements. And essentially what happens is Joe Coy is Filipino. And he goes back to the Philippines, and he's doing his first show in the Philippines since he became a stand-up comic. And so he's doing this live in Manila at a venue in Manila. And instead of just going back to his home and doing a special and being like, hey, Philippines, represent, whatever, he brings back 3 other friends of his that are stand-up comics, a DJ, and apparently breakdancing is still a thing. And there are people called B-boys who basically, they breakdance. He brings this friend of his who's a B-boy, and they're all originally from the Philippines, and he brings them all back. And as he's doing his show, he'll take a break. He'll segue into something and be like, and I brought my buddy back with me. And then they cut and they do a pre-filmed bit of them, like the person, talking about being back in the Philippines and doing all of that stuff. And then he brings them out on stage. They do a little live thing, and then away you go. And so what he's doing is essentially he's sharing the spotlight of his special with a whole bunch of other people from his home country. And I was kind of struck by that. I'm like, wow, this is a really magnanimous thing for him to do, to take the time from, these specials are big deals for stand-up comics, especially hour-long specials. And so he takes time out of his special to highlight all these other people with the same ethnic heritage as him, and they tell stories about that, they're relating to that, and all of the big things about visibility, like this person saw me do a thing on TV and was inspired, like, if that person from the Philippines can do it, I can do it too. And they want to share that and bring that around full circle. And it was really good, a really good special. It was very touching in parts with some of the stories, and it was a really super good example of sharing the spotlight, being very unselfish and being like, here, I'm gonna let you have the spotlight for a while. Now I'm gonna let you have the spotlight for a while. And he spread that around. And I just touched the mic. Where's Senda? So I got a kick out of that. It was a really good show, and it really hammered home for me the whole spotlight sharing thing that you can definitely take to heart when you're playing an RPG. Is be proactive. If you see an opportunity where you can point the spotlight at another player and be like, "Boom, there you go," or
Yeah.
"Hey GM,
Yep.
shine it over there for a second
Yep.
because of reason, whatever."
Yep. I mean, spotlighting is a very big what you call it. I mean, it's a very big deal, right? It makes the especially in games where you're passing it around to have like little narrative moments with different characters. It's one thing when the GM is trying to remember to move the spotlight around. It is tremendous help from the player side. If the players pull other players in,
Yeah.
a lot of times if I'm doing a whole bunch of mini scenes, or if I'm whatchamacallit, or if I'm trying to get something across, right? Like I'm trying to get a particular scene across, or I need to get some information out narratively. I may become so focused on it that while I'm doing an okay job passing the spotlight around between the characters, it is a tremendous help if players will also pitch in and do their part to help, pass it around by either willingly pass it over to another player or pull players into their scenes, those kinds of things. And I think, it works best when both of those things, like it's not a GM thing, it's not a player thing, it's a thing where when everybody's doing it,
Yeah.
it works out.
Page.
Works out best. Cool. That's good. And I like that. I was wondering as you were describing, I'm like, where is he going with this
Yeah.
topic? And then you just like boom, came right around on it. And I was like, I'm with you. Okay. Nice. Nicely done. Jared, tell me a thing.
I started watching Elementary 2 weeks ago and kind
Oh.
of caught up to it. It is very different than the other Sherlock show I'd watched. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
And I like it a lot. What really impressed me about it is I like how they did the introduction of characters being familiar with the Sherlock Holmes genre a little bit, and especially watching the old Masterpiece Theater things and knowing some of the stories and seeing how they brought in characters and put a twist on them, especially Moriarty, which you kind of expect every Sherlock show is going to have their own particular twist on Moriarty. But what they did with this one was really well done, especially as they brought Moriarty back a couple times with some other plot lines. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. It's a good twist. But the idea that you can take a story and retell it and use similar characters and change just enough to keep the feel of the basic setting while still telling a different story. You can even take your favorite movie, or if you want to do an adventure with, for example, years ago, Dragon Magazine had an adventure called Man Forever. And it was where there's basically a guy who's a rich and wealthy bachelor who lives up in a mansion and is obsessed with bats and gadgets and only goes out at night and all that. And the question is he a vigilante or is he a vampire? And I'm pretty sure that one of his minions was a jester, and there was another sorcerer who was obsessed with cold, and so on and so forth. It was basically a twist on the Batman genre, which is a lot of fun to play with. But I think it's the case of keeping true to the feel of the genre, and also what things came from, to keep it fun. Like I was not bothered at all by by some things they did, how they treated people like Lestrade and that sort of thing. And of course, the major twist on just who Holmes and Watson are. They kept it fun. I think one of the few things that bothered me a little bit about the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes was the fact that Holmes is like a cruel bare knuckle boxer. I didn't feel that Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes was as good a Holmes as Cumberbatch or Johnny Lee Miller's characters. Still a fun movie, but I didn't think it was the same fun twist.
I will take the hot take, potentially not hot take, but if it is a hot take, I will stand by it, that Lucy Liu is the best Watson.
Oh, good God, yes! Holy cow!
Lucy Liu is best Watson. I love her. I love her as Watson. I love her character. I love the story arc of her character through the show. Plus, also through the seasons, she has the most rad New York City wardrobe ever.
Good God, yes. And she's not playing Lucy Liu from all the movies. I mean, you and I had a discussion off. I mean, one of the things that kept me away from Elementary when it was on was that Lucy Liu was in it. Because while I think she's a good actress in the things that she's in, I felt that in Charlie's Angels and Payback and and everything else she's always playing the exact same character.
Yeah, Joan Watson is not that character.
No, and good God, she does a lot of acting just with her face.
Yep.
And she's a very believable character. She sells her own things. And the last thing I want to say is that with all of these, I think Elementary is an excellent example of how to build characters with interesting backstories and character flaws that develop as the show goes on, or the adventure goes on, if you want to say. They've all got crippling character flaws that don't actually cripple them.
Yeah, and none of them are perfect. Even no. I mean, Holmes is not perfect.
Oh, good God, no. Yeah. Holmes is probably the most flawed character on the show.
Yeah.
But even the two detectives and
the captain, I love the actor who plays the captain on that show.
Aidan Quinn plays.
The captain's great, and then the lieutenant.
Bell.
Bell. He's got some great stories. I mean, I love that show. And I got nothing bad to say about that show.
And also evolution of characters.
Oh yeah.
Everybody changes as they go, and of course the cat and mouse play between Holmes and Moriarty is just.
Oh.
So anyway, how to build a good villain that the players want to stop but don't want to kill.
Yes.
So anyway, all of that. It's all Elementary is all about the characters and how they develop the stories.
And yet it is a very, very procedural police drama.
Yes.
It is a detective show. It is it's very procedural in its mystery and story and stuff like that. But it managed. I will say, if I have one, I don't know if it's a complaint. I'll call it an observation. People can do with it as they like. Towards the end of the series, the mysteries get wrapped quicker and quicker, leaving more time for character stuff. Like if you watch the first couple seasons versus the last couple seasons, the mysteries in the last seasons tend to wrap faster and faster, so that there's 10 minutes for more character exposition. And again, they're great characters, so I like seeing that. But it drifts from what it originally was, which is very much more of a straight up police procedural.
I've actually noticed that already happening in season 2.
Yes, it will keep going.
Well, because I'm watching it on the computer, so I'm watching it, the scroll. So I'm watching them solve the mystery, and there's still 6 minutes left in the episode, which isn't a bad thing, because sometimes there are some episodes where the mystery is really just a framework to hang all of the other stuff on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I just finished the episode with the kidnapped's daughter, and I'll just say that much, which was a gut punch episode. So good. So anyway, that's what I'd say. I mean, watch shows and use them to figure out how to make better characters. As a GM, I'm a huge fan of creating characters that the players want to interact with and that they care about. So that
I love complex villains, right? I love villains. I love villains that are, we're not going to just shoot this person in the face kind of villain, but like when we do shoot this person in the face, we're going to be very conflicted about it. To that, I will say that one of my favorite villains, as I'm watching Star Trek now, is Gul Dukat.
Gul Dukat is amazing.
Gul Dukat is a Gul Dukat is a very complicated villain. Like,
Yes, I can't wait for Deep Space Nine.
yeah, when we do the Deep Space Nine run through, it'll be fun. Gul Dukat is a very complicated villain who I, at times in the series, despise. At times in the series, I have sympathy for, and then like still despise later.
He's a great actor too, Mark Alamo.
Yes,
He's been in a ton of stuff. He was in the original Total Recall. He was the head of the military on Mars.
Oh yeah. Bob, I revel in your ability to tie things back.
That's cool.
Okay, I'm going to talk about Star Trek, of course, because that's been what's going on. But here's the thing, right? One of the things I've really been picking up on as I'm in my own watching, I've been binging Deep Space Nine, and then now as we're doing the watch party, I've been going back and watching Next Gen episodes. Is that you can feel the difference between Next Gen, which is very episodic, right? 45-minute space mystery, 45-minute space problem, neatly wrapped up, and Deep Space Nine, which often has a problem that's wrapped up, but things keep going in that show, right? Like, you know, like there are ongoing threads that that carry on. And, you know, we're at season 3 in Next Gen, so it is still incredibly procedural, which is fun because it means that we can kind of skip over episodes because there's not so many episodes that rely on another one. But it is interesting as I'm watching the show more and more. I'm like, now I'm starting to pick apart the kind of Star Trek formulas for science problems, right? Like there's a lot of science problems in Star Trek episodes, and it's fun to watch. There's a very, I don't want to say predictable, but there is a structure to how they intro, escalate, conclude kind of thing. And what's also interesting is I was flipping through the Star Trek Adventures, the command science and the security ops engineering book. So there's a separate splat book for the red shirt, the blue, and the gold. And what's interesting is one of the things that they have in there, and I didn't read up on it enough to speak from really a point of understanding it fully, but they talk about when you're running your games to have a red plot, a blue plot, and a gold plot. And that you don't have to use all 3 of them, but like your game should have like a red plot, which is like, you know, these are command problems. These are, you know, diplomacy and that kind of thing. And then there's like a blue plot where, you know, like there's a science problem on the ship, like, or, you know, this gold plot, like the transporters aren't working, or combine them, right? Like the transporters and alien virus, right? So now you get like the blue plot, gold plot thing. And it's really interesting to kind of watch the idea of, you know, these different threads woven into the shows. And you can, you know, you start to see it in different episodes. As I'm watching it now, I'm kind of seeing where they got some of these ideas from. Like, oh, this show, like the A plot of this show is a red, you know, is a red plot line. This one is a blue plot line.
So what kind of plot line is Loxana Troy?
Well, the one with Loxana. I
mean, any of them.
I mean, so technically, there's 2 parts to it.
Yes.
Whenever Loxana shows up, usually, except for the one that we watched, I think in season 2, where she shows up for the arranged marriage, because that's just a character story. But often when Loxana shows up, that is almost always in a red plot because she's a diplomat, right? She's an ambassador.
Was that one of your episodes? Was that one of the episodes you pulled? Because I don't think we've seen her yet.
No, because I don't think I showed the season 2 episode. It would have been a bonus episode where she first shows up. There's a in season 1. I think it's season 1 or season 2. No, season 2. I think she shows up because Troy has an arranged marriage she has to get out of.
Okay.
But yeah, so normally when Loxana Troy shows up, it is a red plot. It is the overarching thing, and then her arrival always means that there is going to be a personal story, often with her daughter. And in Deep Space Nine, Loxana shows up. It's going to be a personal story for Odo.
Okay.
So that's very much. But because she's an ambassador, she almost always shows up with a red plot, trailing behind her, because she shows up for some negotiation, or she shows up for some treaty or something like that. But yeah, like it's really interesting to kind of see like different episodes lead with different plots. Like I think there's one in season 3 that we're not watching where the Enterprise gets, I think, caught in some space anomaly or something, and Geordi accesses a holodeck image of Leah Brahms, who designed the Galaxy class starship, right? So the episode is very much a gold plot episode with some extra Geordi character development in it. So it's an interesting way, it's a very Star Trek thing, but you can also look at that, if we wanted to abstract that, you can always look at when you're running a game, like for instance, for icons, I may want to, as I'm thinking about it even further, my goal might be when I prep a adventure, an issue, I might want to, put Glenn's character, who's an Atlantean who lives in Lake Erie, where Atlantis is in Lake Erie. That's a long story. But I might want to have my A plot be about Glenn's character, because I want to do some stuff about Atlantis and Halcyon City. And then maybe my B plot is going to pick up something that Bob's doing. Or I might want to do an A plot with, some bonkers shit that Tony's going to do, and then just roll with it and see what happens. And, you can, start my A plot with Tony by, what things should you not be doing with your medallion power that you're currently doing? Right? Like, and then just roll from there.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that especially for a comic book style game, that that idea of I'm gonna do this A plot and this B plot is very comic booky, right? I think that's very tropey. It works again really well. It works really well in Star Trek in general. It's not a thing I would do in my DCC game. My DCC game is very much. My DCC game is not about individual characters. That game is very much about playing modules.
Especially while we still have 12 characters.
Yeah, but even when we go down to individual characters, that's not the game where I'm developing. So tell me more about Sir Perseus. Like, not really. Just there's some monsters behind this door. Yep. Let's roll. And that's okay, right? Like that DCC game has a particular goal and feel, where the Forbidden Lands game is totally different.
Yeah.
The Forbidden Lands, but now the thing I really need to do in the Forbidden Lands game is I feel like, Bob, your character is a little stronger, a little more defined than some of the other ones. And I think I need to put some spotlight time onto some of the other characters and really bring them up a bit.
I agree.
Like, I feel like your character's got some really, I got really good feels for your character. You've had some really good narrative time, interactions. Like, I kind of feel like I need to make sure that I can grow out the other characters a little bit more. And all of this is coming off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, all right. That's all 3 of those. Do we have time to talk about other stuff, or should we just roll?
We are after 9:30, which is what we had earmarked. So,
yeah, we'll talk about other things later. Let's roll to the community. Is there anything going on in the chat room? Because I now see Evil John in the chat room, which always brings me joy. Savannah popped in at some point.
Yeah, nothing super tight. Just a couple of little comments about some of the discussion.
Yeah. And John's right. John's talking about how B plots always develop characters more. Absolutely, right? Because especially like if you look at next gen, the A plot is always what space danger are we solving? And the B plot is like, what cool character thing is happening under the umbrella of space danger that we're solving. And what you call it? And I like that a lot. I think the thing with again, one of the reasons why I'm really drawn to DS9 is I think DS9's their character growth is tremendous, right? Because they're not episodic. So we actually do see a lot of running arcs, continuous arcs for characters that get picked up and put down, during the course of a season.
From a game standpoint, I'm seeing that with the Savage Eberron game we're doing, because while I'm running these adventures, we're seeing a lot of side plots as characters get interested in one thing or another that becomes the character development section. One of the characters is interested in how elemental magics are put together, and so we'll end up having an entire 20-minute session where they're exploring the way magic works and talking about it with the other players, and that gets to be much more character development. Letting the players do that, letting the players sometimes take their own B plots and then just working your story into them is a huge part of making the characters more alive in the game, especially if they take the time to bring other players with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that goes back to that whole spotlight thing that Bob was just talking about.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good stuff. Let's roll over to the conversation corner.
Hey, let's do a roll over to the conversation corner thing.
Alrighty. Welcome to the conversation corner. So yeah, we're going to chat about other stuff going in our lives. I'll start really quick. So I am a week out from my really big work project, moving a data center. It has been 9 months of planning. That's now a week from go, and I'm working a lot. In fact, I worked all day yesterday, and I was in meetings for 4 hours yesterday. And then I worked. Then after dinner, I worked from 7:30 to 1 in the morning with just a couple breaks in between. So that was pretty brutal. And then, got up and went right back to work for 4 more hours of meetings today. I'm not going to do any more work today. I'm done. But I have the rest of the week to kind of get everything ready. And then everything starts to happen, movers and people on site and all that stuff. Needless to say, my next 2 weeks are going to be very intense. In fact, we didn't even record Pandas last night. We're going to record Talking Games hopefully tomorrow night, assuming that I'm not bogged down in work. I'll be doing some recording for Talking Games on Wednesday. I'm just going to be real touch and go. I am hopeful that I'm not going to scramble on us on Tuesday. But that's the actual day of the physical move. So fingers crossed, everything's moved in and nothing's gone wrong. I should have no problem making the show by 8 o'clock. If all hell has broken loose, we'll make an audible call about whether I'm going to be on the show and you guys are going to do it, or whether you guys are doing it, or whatever. We'll see. We'll leave that flexible. But yeah, so I'm gearing up for that. That's been a lot of work, and will be a lot of work. Overall, though, my anxiety is really down. After having that really good session with my therapist, I started to institute this step down thing where I get off social media by 11, recreate for a little bit, and then no screens for the last hour of the evening. And I actually just read a physical book. Do you remember those? The books with the pages? So no, not even reading comic books on my iPad, actually physical book. And for that, I started reading Nine Princes in Amber again. Has not lost anything.
Yep.
Still enjoying that book. So I've been reading that in the evenings before I go to bed. Also, my Trophy Gold contribution to the big old Caldor Mega Dungeon was accepted by the Gauntlet team. So very happy about that. Very happy to have been asked to contribute, and very happy to have gotten that piece in. And I'm having a lot of fun with the Star Trek watch party. Like I've had a lot of fun curating the episodes. I've had a lot of fun hosting the watch parties and putting up the posts about the episodes in the forums, like just like, hey, this is why I picked this episode, and just my own thoughts, like, hey, having now watched it again, like here are some of my thoughts about the episode, that kind of thing. That's like actually given me more life than I didn't realize how much fun I would think that was going to be, and now I'm not only excited to keep doing this one, I'm excited to start the DS9 one at some point after we finish the next gen one. So, yeah, that's me. What about you, Jer?
Pretty much, like I said, things are moving along. Those of you who talked to me on Mumble know that we've been going through trying to find a shipping employee issue for the last like 4 or 5 months. We had a new guy start today, and it looks like it's taken off well. So it'll take a lot of stress off of me at work. We also have one of our employees been out, is coming back for a couple days a week. So we're going to have more people in the office, which is going to be just helping everybody else there. Which stress work-wise is going to be good because this is our busy season. So it's going to be a lot of, it means that days are flying by and that people's stress is starting to get a little bit relieved, which is always good. On the home front, lots of game playing, got a chance to try a bunch of new stuff. Like I said, Mothership has been fun. Still loving DCC. The FM Gamers had a good Masks game. I don't remember what we're doing next. But it's just been a lot of fun gaming, and we're spending time at home with my wife and of course, the cats, as those who are video can see. And just it's been good. No major projects starting right now as far as games are concerned. I'm jumping back into the Savage Eberron game. Though I talked with Glenn, just bouncing, so just joking around, and I've got some ideas for some other one-shots for when we finally do Savage Sundays again. Glenn gave me a really nice resource for doing gender non-specific names for characters.
Oh, cool.
Something somebody told me about last year, which is when making pre-gens for games, pick names like Chris or Terry, or things that the player can decide what gender they want to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because I'm trying to be more diverse, I was trying to find non-traditional Christian European names to use. And Glenn found this really nice resource for getting gender neutral names from all different cultures. And so
nice.
You can have so you're not just stuck with, oh look, it's a bunch of white people, from Europe. And it's going to make for better, for just because the players I get coming to Savage Sundays are not just like me. And I want to give people a chance, because I've talked to players who have talked about coming to a game and not having, what happens when you're female and all of the characters are male.
Yep.
Or all of the characters are very obviously white or Christian or whatever, and or straight, and you want to play something different. And watching players do that, and to be honest, seeing some players who are politely stepping outside their comfort zone. People, I think we all know male players who play female characters and vice versa, and play them in a respectful way, and that's also good to see, because it means that they're getting a chance to try something and do it in a safe environment and still play a cool game. So that's something I'm working on now that I've got some time to develop some new characters coming out.
Yeah, so, it's interesting you say that, because I'm so used to, over the last couple of years, playing PBTA games that you just make up the characters as part of the one shot, right? So like I never think about that, because like people will just make up the character they want, and often playbooks have names suggested with them and all of that, and I love that, right? Because I love that that's all built in. But I'm thinking back now, like a couple years before that, when I ran games where I did have pre-gens, and I really like the, okay, take these stats, and either finish it off the way you want, or here it's like you need to fill in these things, pronouns, et cetera, and make this character, and then tell me who, now tell me about who this character is. Like, I've handled the you handle the mechanical crunchy part and leave more of it open for people to make the character that they want to be.
I'm also still working on a project that I just played around with a couple of years back was relationship cards, where everybody got a card that they filled in that had a different kind of relationship with somebody else in the group.
That's an interesting idea.
That may or may not be reciprocal. It's not like necessarily romantic. It could be just like bromance, like the Finn Poe thing. It could be unrequited crush.
Whoa! Walk that back. Don't give me that bromance Finn Poe thing. That's romance Finn Poe thing.
Okay, romance Finn Poe thing. However you want to look at it. We're not pushing it on anybody, but that's the whole idea. No,
Look, he bit his lip when he looked at him in the coat. That's romance.
I wanted the Finn Poe romance also.
We all know that Disney chickened out on that.
Disney dropped the ball on that. They not just on that. They also Finn Rose thing. I don't know why they introduced that new character. She's completely unnecessary.
I mean, we could get into a whole thing and fall off the.
Yeah,
but the underutilization of Rose Tycho is another crime. Only way to correct that crime is to give her own Disney Plus show.
Yeah,
I'm waiting.
Yes,
I'm waiting for payment.
Yes,
I want my Rose Tycho Disney Plus show.
But playing around with those kinds of things is kind of fun. Just to give, I always like it when, especially for a kid.
Sorry, I didn't mean to give you shit about it. It was fine. I got what you were saying, but I'm touchy about the Poe. I'm touchy about the Poe thing.
No, I understand. It was also, but if it was also it's a romance and a bromance. It could be both. But no, the idea that you can have characters that have pre-existing relationships, I think that's always important for. It's wanted heathen. Sorry, Evil John just said it's not a bromance. It's wanted heathen lust. Okay, we'll give you that too. No, I think it's important when you have pre-generated characters, to always have some link between that character and somebody else in the group.
Yep, absolutely.
So that right off the bat, the players have things. And what I tried to do with these was you're going to have a relationship with somebody else in the group, and you get to decide what that relationship is. And it might be one-sided, but at least you have some sort of relationship. You like them, you work well with them, they're in love with you and you don't care, that kind of thing. It's a lot of fun. It makes for some interesting interpersonal stories, but also helps represent people that have all been together for a long enough time.
I could not agree more. Years ago, I was doing some stuff with a homemade fantasy world of mine, doing some L Hall, Fate of L Hall stuff that Chris and I were working on. And I had asked Chris to make the pre-gens for the adventure that I was going to run. And he made this fantastic family unit that was all linked in different ways. Like, they were a family, but they all had like different relationships and connections to one another, like sibling rivalry and parent favorite child, quote favorite child, kind of thing. And it was really good. And the so I really liked. So I could not agree with you more. Right, if you're going to play really good one shot, having characters that have linkages and relationships to one another is it makes it that much better. And then I like the idea of somewhat randomized. In fact, I did something not with cards, but I did this Masks prom night game. And besides defining your character, you also had to define your prom date, because the prom dates got sucked up in this alien teleport beam, and you had to drag your prom date with you on this superhero story. So I had for them up to the players, I had different types of prom dates. So I had like the the king and queen of the prom, we're going just as friends, question mark. Like,
Mhm.
are we really just friends? We had this is prom is the quote special night, couple, that kind of thing. So I threw them on the table, and the players picked them, like which ones resonated with them, and it was a lot of fun. Like it instantly made. If I had just said like, oh yeah, you're bringing, your prom dates are with you, it would have been like kind of okay. But by the time we were done, they were heroes. Like I think Gator's character was jealous of the relationship of another character. Oh, it was great. It was incredibly tangled and messy, which is exactly what you want for a prom night adventure.
Did you have the inevitable? We were dating until prom night, and now we're just going and can't stand each other.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that was one of those. Yeah.
That's a great one.
Well, that couple was the we're going to prom to fix our failing relationship.
Oh no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking.
Oh no, that doesn't mean it's gonna work, right?
No,
it's like
no. When I was in high school, there were several people I knew that were in the. They kind of broke up like 3 days before the prom, and still went to the prom with the person that they now hated.
No, I didn't do that, but we did have. By the time that game was done, we did have a big, massive public breakup as the queen of the prom, who was a super, broke up with the king of the prom, who was I think he was a either football player or baseball player or something, but he couldn't actually take the fact that as a hero she was more popular than he was as a high school sports star. That one, there were some really good ones. Schmitty's character were the two friends that went, and in the middle of the adventure realized that they were more than friends to each other. I also, because I knew everybody at this table, I allowed everybody to play each other's prom dates. So
that works well.
Really, really, really knocked that adventure out of the park. Anyway, that was sorry, didn't mean to segue into that, but I liked. I really liked that.
We gotta play those games. You guys run those games locally for us one of these days.
I will take that one out and run it. It would that one would be a lot. That one was a fun masks game.
I love you, Phil, but I keep hearing about all these wonderful games you run that are always at conventions where I'm busy running something else, or with the other game groups you're not.
I know. It's that thing like it's that thing like you can never get I lost my analogy. No, I totally get it. Like when I go to conventions, I put out.
I know.
When I go to a convention, I put out a much bigger spread for dinner. If you come over to my place, I'm like making chicken nuggets and tater tots, right? Like,
I'm teasing you. But yeah, but seriously, we should play games like that here. It's gonna be a lot of fun to do them. I think, especially with some of the groups you've got, would work really well. So.
Yeah, I mean, someday. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would like to actually do that. Actually, I can't squeeze another game day into my schedule, but I have like more games that I want to play. Like, there are things I want to run that I don't have slots to run right now. And I really, if I take on another game day, it means I'm like on Zoom and the mic's like 5 nights a week, and I'm almost like that might be a bit too much.
Or you could always just codify the rules and release it as some sort of supplement.
Yeah, that would be me I would have to produce the thing right now, but it's not beyond. It's not beyond the realm of possibility.
I'm teasing you.
Babbo.
Go ahead.
Babbo, would you like to contribute to the conversation corner before we go any further off the rails?
I got another board game that I kickstarted delivered today.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yet another thing I have to find room on a shelf for.
It's a nice looking shelf.
Yeah. And I looked and I still have 14 active Kickstarters. Not counting Far West, Satanic Panic, and Noir World. So that's 17 active Kickstarters.
No, Satanic Panic doesn't count as active.
Well,
we are never gonna see our money back on that thing.
Yeah,
It's dead. We've been robbed, and that's it. No, you're not gonna. I understand what you're saying though. There's a lot of good Kickstarters coming out now.
yeah. Most of them are board games too. It's
Mhm. I've been very careful about that.
I have just a couple outstanding right now. I mean, I'm never going to see my Mountain Witch.
yeah, that's never gonna happen.
That one's a DOA. But yeah, but 14 Kickstarters. You are doing a very nice job.
And a chunk of the newest ones are not cheap ones.
No, because you did like some of those big board game
Yeah,
ones.
I did that Marvel United one. That's like $250.
Mm-hmm.
I did that that story game board game, the Sea and Sail or something, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's like gonna be like $180. But yeah, it's what I do. I have some disposable income, so I'm like whatever.
Yeah.
And speaking of disposable income, the other thing that I did, I splurged today and bought the Affinity Suite, the 3 applications from Affinity,
Yeah.
which are the competitors to Adobe Photoshop, Adobe
Yes.
InDesign, and Adobe whatever the other one is. I don't care anymore, but they were like $24.99 each because they're on sale for 50% off right now. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. I'm gonna start learning how to use some of that stuff. They're supposed to be as good as the Adobe stuff, and like built from the ground up to be, like functional, intuitive as you can get with the number of functions that they've got. But like they cut out the fluff. Like, we're gonna make this do the thing. It's gonna do the thing. It's gonna do the thing well, and you won't have to have like a lot of extra junk and whatnot. I don't know. But I've heard a lot of good things about them from a lot of people, so I figured.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Affinity.
Yeah.
So for the price,
It'd be nice to see.
And taking a very different approach to making what is actually an accessible product for publication.
yeah, one of their whole things is it's you don't have to pay a monthly or yearly subscription to use this thing. It's flat fee. You buy it, and you can use this version as long as you want. And when we come out with a new version, if you want to do the upgrade, there'll be a fee, a modest fee for the upgrade. But you're so if there's like 5 years between versions, you're not paying
Oh,
over
I know.
and over and over and over.
And to be honest, if and if I wasn't getting mine through an educational discount, I would have the exact same the exact same feeling.
Yeah. Now the other question will be is how compatible is it with the files created from the Adobe suite? Can, for example, like a Tim Jones do a layout, give me a PS file, and me go in and open it with Affinity, and
do something
and
with
fix a problem, and then close it back up. These are the questions that one of the reasons why I bought it for the price that I bought it at was like, make myself more useful, streamline some of our processes when we get back to doing the thing someday down the road. So,
yeah.
All right. We should do the next thing.
We should.
Yeah, let's roll over to some patron shout-outs, hit the closing, jump over to the after show, and then chat for a little bit before we adjourn, and then get ready for Star Trek.
All right, this week's Patreon shout-outs are going to Scott Ryder, Sean P. Kelly, Steve Bissonette, Steve Radabaugh, T. Kustik, Theodore Atkinson, Victor Wyatt, who I haven't heard from in forever. Victor, how you doing? Zach Goins,
Victor.
Noah Bond, and Austin Lemke. Thank you for being patrons.
Yeah, thank you. Austin is somebody I see at conventions, so just seeing Austin's name reminds me that we're not conventioning right now.
Yeah. I'm getting all of the Origins updates from all the stuff we did last year at Origins.
Yeah.
And it's
that's heartbreak.
This week will be a little painful for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, but thank you all for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with other listeners in the ever awesome Chat Room for Life and ask us the occasional question.
And if you cannot make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week, wherever you get your podcasts. Take a listen to some other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Bonestone Obsidian, the FM Gamers, Pandas Talking Games, the Gnome Cast, Janku Hustle, The Lounge, She's a Super Geek, and Bonus Experience. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
After you have made your ruling and before somebody rolls those dice, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly at mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Hit us up on Twitter. The show and the network is at misdirectedmark. He's at Robert M. Everson. He's GM Gerrymander, and I am DNA Phil.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. She's a Super Geek is at patreon.com/SassGeek. Zhengu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhengu Hustle. And Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. I'm sensing a theme there. Patrons of MMP, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.